2, 1.
This is Jon Stephenson, coordinator of student engagement here at Wallace State Community College. I want to personally welcome you to Lion Talk. This podcast series will give you all the information of what's going on here at Wallace State Community College. We will keep you up to date on topics such as student activities, organizations, athletics, and general academic and program information. If there is any given topic that you would like for us to cover, or if you have any comments, please do not hesitate to contact me personally. You can reach me at jon.stephenson@wallacestate.edu. That's jon.stephenson@wallacestate.edu. Be sure to hit the subscribe tab so you can stay up to date on the exciting things that is taking place here at Wallace State Community College. We hope you enjoy Lion Talk. All right, welcome to another episode of Lion Talk. This week's episode, we have the world famous, and I say that because it's the truth, the world famous Randy Putman, Coach Putman around here at Wallace State. Coach Putman is our men's baseball coach, and Coach, thank you for taking time to come. I know right now it's a busy time in your schedule, but also, you know, one of the main reasons I wanted to ask you to come right now, I wanted you to give me some information about what's going on with Wallace State baseball, because I know we're right now currently in the season. Kind of update us on the information with that, and also just kind of hear a little bit about yourself. I know a lot of people in the community, students, they see you walking on the field, see you across campus, but they really don't truly know who the Coach Putman is. So when I came here in November, I made a point to reach out to you, Coach, and I know we sat in your office for over an hour just talking, and when we started these podcasts, your name popped right up. I was like, I've got to get Coach Putman because we had such great conversation, and we really didn't even know each other. You're just that type of person, and so, Coach, thank you for being here. First of all,
well, it's a pleasure to be here. I love Wallace State. Been here a long time, and I like to promote Wallace State in all facets of of not just baseball, but in everything that we do try to accomplish here.
Yes, sir, and I can vouch for that because when we sat down in your office just as talking that the one day, you and I just reached out and said, Coach, can I come over and see you? And we did, and the next thing you know, we're talking about just topics other than baseball, but we talked about Wallace. And I think you've got a great, vast amount of information. And what is this, your 30th year?
30th year.
Wow.
That we're in right now.
I believe we were talking before we started. There's not many more coaches, probably in the junior college system, that could say they've got 30 years and still currently active, right?
No, there's not many. There's a few that in baseball, and it seems like baseball is a sport that coaches do stick with it, and because it's a process of, in junior college, developing players every year because it's you get such a big turnover.
Yes, sir. And we're going to talk about that later on in this podcast. But first off, let's just give me a little history about yourself. I know that when we had our conversation, you were telling me you're not really from around here. So kind of tell me about yourself, your family, first off, and then we'll move on with the podcast.
Well, originally from Birmingham. Grew up there in Birmingham in Center Point, and I played high school baseball, played junior college baseball at Calhoun, and then again at Jeff State my second year. I had to transfer because of some issues that where my dad become blind, and I needed to transfer back home. Then I played at Jacksonville State, played 3 years of professional baseball with the Kansas City Royals and the San Diego Padres in their organization. Got up as far as I could go, got released, and had to get my degree. So I went to the University of Alabama to finish up my degree, and then got my master's degree at UAB, and was a graduate assistant baseball coach at UAB under the legendary Harry the Hat Walker.
Okay.
And that was a great learning experience from me. Thought I knew baseball until I got around the hat, and he taught me more about baseball than anybody had ever taught me. Went down to Pensacola, Florida, Tate High School to start my coaching career. Stayed down in Pensacola at Tate High School for 6 years. Had some success, won a national championship, 2 state championships down there. Had some excellent players that wanted to be winners. And then Jim Van Horn, who was the athletic director up here at Wallace, he called me and told me that this was the worst baseball program in the United States. And he told me that they were 17-73 the 2 years before I got here, and 7-47 the year before I got here. And I knew it was going to be a challenge, and it was
Wow.
It was a drastic challenge to say the least. And but we were able to turn the program around and have some success. And in the 3rd year, we went to the World Series for the first. That's the first time in 26 years previous that an Alabama junior college had ever gone to the World. Nobody had gone to the World Series to represent Alabama, and we were able to do it in the 3rd year. And that was the 3rd year, and 27 years later, I'm still here.
Still here at it.
Still here at it.
And through this podcast, I'm going to ask you some questions, just from that day one, starting here at Wallace, all the way to now, and about the current team. But you mentioned a couple of things just a few minutes ago, and I wrote this down. One of my really close friends, he's from Pensacola, and his brother still lives there, and his brother still to this day is a Tate High School fanatic. And those people, the fans in the community there, they surround that school still to this day, and it's amazing. They tailgate. They're all about that school. So that's an honor to know that you were there, because that's a powerhouse school in the high school setting in athletics. And also, I personally played collegiate football. I never was a superstar, but I was able to sign and play. I was that person too, a senior in high school, thought I knew everything. And when I hit that D1 level and got to play under some pretty heavy hitting coaches that had NFL experience and numerous years of coaching, I was very humbled. They lowered me down to the ground, and so I wish I knew what I knew then coming in, and not been so much hard headed. So another thing too, Coach, I know you mentioned something about earlier that you had to take a break due to illness with your father. How long of a break did you take during that time period?
Well, it wasn't really a break. When I came out of high school, Irwin High School, in 1972, I went to Calhoun, and that's when my dad developed. He had cataracts and glaucoma, and I was a little different situation where when I came back to Jeff State, my daily routine was classes in the morning, baseball in the afternoon, drive downtown Birmingham and help load trucks until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because I had to help pay the bills.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, my mother had just started a job working in a factory on a conveyor belt. And I was the oldest of my 2 brothers, and I had to go to work too. And that gave me some backbone. That taught me that there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and responsibility and accountability are 2 important words. And so I had to grow up quickly. And so I was able to do that. And then I went to Jacksonville State. Okay. And probably the thing that I'm extremely proud of is my dad got me playing baseball when I was 6 years old, and I'm 64 now, and I've either played it or coached it every single year since then. So to say it's in my blood, it's definitely in my blood, and it's something that is very important to me.
Yes, sir. And I could tell that when you said you had backbone, your personality and Coach. Sometimes people walk around as coaches, they have that mean persona, I guess you would say, but. Coach, you would take your shirt off your back, and I know that about you. You're just a great guy, inside and out. So that's always good to know. And I didn't know that about you, and I'm sure probably the majority of our listening community probably does not know that about you. So anyway, just moving forward. We talked about, asked you about your family. I know when I first started here. I guess my first week here, I'd heard your name, but I mean, I knew you. My father worked in the junior college system in the state of Alabama, so we always knew about Wallace State baseball because one of, I guess you'd say, rivalries. It's not like Alabama-Auburn, but one of the rivalries was a school that he was in administration at, and so. When I got here, I was like, I was excited to meet the legendary Coach Putman, and so I knew you were out for a little bit because you had grandkids. And was this your first set of grandkids to have?
Yeah.
And it was twins, right, too?
Well, twins were the last two grandkids.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a younger grandson that I call him the champ, but his name is Bo Thomas.
Okay.
And that's from my oldest daughter and her husband, who's the baseball coach at Enterprise.
That's what I was about to ask you, yes.
So we have a little rival going there, especially at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. We want to make sure that we take care of business where we're not talking about losing to them.
Yeah, and I know how that is. The rivalry there. My father, he's now a president down in Florida, and just recently our softball team played his softball team. So he and I both were, giving each other a hard time back, and we actually, Wallace State, we were able to win those games. So I was actually able to throw it back at him there a little bit. So I know exactly what you're talking about during the family time. So having a little rivalry in state competition there. So do you expect yourself to possibly play your son anytime, maybe in the state tournaments or?
Well, to play my son-in-law.
Son-in-law, excuse me.
I would prefer not to play them, but if it comes about that, then we're playing them. Just if we play them, it's just like playing anybody else.
Yes, sir.
We've got to take care of business, and but if we couldn't win a state championship and go to the World Series, then I hope that he's able to.
Yes, sir. And how many years is your and what is your son-in-law's name?
Yeah, he's Bubba Frichter.
Bubba Frichter. How long has Bubba been coaching?
This is his third year at Enterprise.
Okay. Did he play under you?
No. He my daughter met him in Tuscaloosa.
Okay.
And they dated and engaged and married and has a redheaded son.
Okay. Now, have you ever coached any relatives or
I've never coached any relatives
or your children?
I've coached a lot of former players. That their sons have played for me, and once they get into our program here, they it's almost like family.
Okay.
And so I enjoy coaching former players' sons. They've kind of been prepped on how we do things and the demand that we ask them to do.
Now, you said when you say that there, Coach, what if a player that's interested in playing at Wallace State, how do you go about that? I know that you have some assistant coaches, and Coach, was it Marks?
Yes.
You just hired him. What he come from? Was it Atlanta area?
He's from the Atlanta area.
Okay.
But he was coaching at Christian Brothers University in Memphis.
Okay.
And we were able to get Brett to come in January.
And he's a former player, right? Is that correct?
Former player of mine here for 2 years, and then went to Tennessee and pitched at Tennessee, and then a few years with the New York Yankees.
Oh, wow. Now, Brett, does he help you recruit, or do you do mostly the recruiting? What is the process? Say, for instance, right now I'm a say 11th grader, and I'm really wanting to play collegiate baseball. Tell me the steps if I'm wanting to maybe get your attention, Coach, how you go about the recruiting process.
Well, it's changed a lot over the years. The recruiting now has to be done during the summer.
Okay.
And you have to be willing to get on the road and go. And it might not just be Birmingham or Huntsville. It might be Atlanta, Jackson, Mississippi, Nashville, Tennessee. Wherever there's a lot of travel baseball tournaments going on is where you have to go and locate players, talk to coaches, talk to scouts about the kind of players that will fit into our program. It used to be done where you would go out in the spring and you would see games in high school. It's not done that way anymore now. You just have to be willing to get on the road. And
a lot of word of mouth too, right?
A lot of word of mouth, and then the biggest thing is to find the people that you can trust.
Yes, sir.
Find the coaches that's going to be honest with you, because they're all trying to sell their players.
Do you have any four-year schools that may I know it's really big right now, like the partnerships with the four-year schools. There's these TV shows out there where they may have a student that comes in that may have some academic trouble. They need to drop down. Do you have any strong partnerships with any four-year schools in that nature? Have we had any students or players come in like that? Or
you're talking about transfer guys, and we stay in touch with all the four-year schools, because most of the four-year schools, if the players have played here, then they want to recruit them because they realize over the years that if they played here, they're going to do the right thing, and that's baseball, and then hopefully off the field too. We try to stay in touch between Brett and I. We'll stay in touch with the four-year schools just to see if there's someone that might be academically slow, might be not quite ready to play at that level, to be able to to locate these guys. And if you have a need, then that's what we try to do, is try to try to bring them in and get to know them and develop a relationship with them.
And that's awesome about you, Coach, that it's not just about baseball. You want to teach these gentlemen life choices, because some of these guys, once they get through playing the 2 years here, they're going to hit the real world. Some of these guys will maybe have the opportunity to play at a four-year school, right, and maybe even go to the league. But that's awesome that you really take pride in teaching life choices to these young men. And with you, and we're talking about, I guess, the recruiting process. Tell me about you said your father, he gave you advice on baseball. What kind of advice could you give any future maybe collegiate baseball players, some of these fathers out here? Because I know that there's when I was in high school, I probably could have gone and played small D1 baseball, but I made the decision to play football. That was where I wanted, what I wanted to play. But when I was in high school, these camps, it's amazing how things have changed just in the past 10 years, how they're developing students more on the front end now. And these students are playing all this travel ball. Travel ball was, more or less the only travel ball we really had when I was going in high school was the AAU basketball. That was the only kind of travel ball that you could actually have any kind of pre-collegiate support and training. Now it's you got all these hitting camps. I know there's a gentleman in my town that has a center just devoted for baseball, supporting kids in baseball. And my little 6-year-old cousin, he's taking lessons now for baseball there. Right. So kind of tell me about that, your thoughts on that, and some advice for, parents that have children that are really wanting to play baseball, and how to kind of mentor those kids moving up, just like your father did you.
Right. The most important thing, because just about everybody does play travel ball in the summer, and it's the most important thing for parents is to associate themselves with people that know what they're talking about. There's a lot of guys out there that take their money in travel baseball, and they don't, they don't actually teach them the game. They don't. They just let them play. And so it's very important for parents to associate and to find the right kind of people that care about their sons, that will give them the shirt off their back to be able to help their sons. And there's not many that way, because there's a lot of people in it for the money, instead of in it to try to help that individual excel and possibly get a scholarship in baseball, or possibly even have a chance to play professional baseball.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I know what you mean, because there's everybody's trying to make a dollar. So is there any individuals that you could recommend that for anybody like in our kind of direct feeder community? I know that I would say that would be like Coleman City, Coleman County, Walker, Jefferson County, maybe even a Morgan. Is there any individuals that you would really recommend to train maybe a younger prospect?
Right. There's individuals that's out that that could possibly help. The travel teams, there's a Vipers team in Huntsville that I think that they do a good job. There's teams in Birmingham that they do a good job. I've got former players that Stan Reese, that's in our Hall of Fame up here, that played for me, then went to LSU, and I think he does a good job. It's just you've got to be very careful for parents, because, like I said, it's certain guys, certain organizations are the ones that you want to be involved in.
Now, you just mentioned the word Hall of Fame, and I was in the arena, and I found myself a lot of times just kind of, I wouldn't say being nosy, but looking around because, once I started here in November, I was just boots on the ground, and so I'm not really able to take advantage of see what all we have on this campus, and I don't think I've even seen half of it. Like, I didn't even know this AV room here, which is just like what you would see, at Fox News. We have it all here. I didn't even know this room existed until after being here for like a month and a half. But I was in the arena. I guess I would say this was back right before the Christmas holidays, and I was just kind of observing in the bookshelves there, and I saw your face there, Coach. And so. And it wasn't just a picture of you just saying this is Coach Putman. So there was a lot of awards and honors that you have, in I guess you would say in your arsenal, in your portfolio. So kind of tell me a little bit about some of the awards that you've received personally, and about those pictures that you could see in the front of our Coliseum here at Wallace State.
Well, I've been very blessed. The good Lord's blessed me. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be involved in baseball. And I've had success, but I've had success because of the people that you surround yourself with. And I honestly mean that. I think that I've had great mentors over the years that taught me the game of baseball when I was growing up. It started with my dad and went on up through high school baseball and then junior college, and then, like I said, Jacksonville State under Rudy Abbott, who is a legend at Jacksonville State. And then in professional baseball, I was able to be around people. So I have to give the credit for the success we've had and the Hall of Fames and all that have been able to make their Hall of Fames. I have to give a lot of people the credit. I've the desire, the passion that you got to have to be able to be successful, I still have it. I try to do it the old school way. Some people don't understand that. Some people don't like it, to be perfectly honest. But that's I know what it takes to be successful, and it's because of the people that I've had in my background. And but like I said, all the success, it's not just me. It's the people that's been involved in my life.
Surround yourself with positive people, and positive outcomes will come. And you mentioned Coach Abbott. I was actually blessed too, being a junior in high school, to go to a baseball camp and learn for a couple of weeks under Coach Abbott, and that was a life-changing experience. He really encouraged me and pushed me, and I learned a lot up under the camp that I attended there under Coach Abbott. Let me ask you a question talking about camps, Coach. We had the discussion just a few minutes ago about, these younger students now, they're going to these, trainers or coaches and learning techniques. Do you put on any kind of summer camps or clinics that maybe you personally would be over, or maybe even the Wallace State baseball team, where in the summer, if some students wanted to come in for a week and attend a camp and kind of I guess you would say rack your brain, Coach, because I know there's a lot of knowledge up there.
Well, we've over the years we have put on a lot of summer camps. Some has been very, very successful, and we feel like that the young men, after they attend our camp for a week, that they've made progress. And that's what we try to teach them, is that you can't get a lot better every day, but you can get a little better every day. And then at the end of the week, at the end of the month, whatever the season you're in, if you get a little bit better, those little bits turn into a lot. And but we do have camps. We some summers we do not, and we don't simply because of the fact that there's a lot of road work to be done in recruiting, and we just might not have the time to do it, because it's in junior college it's more or less starting over each year.
Yes, sir. Let's just talk about this year's team. I know that we've got a large amount of freshmen this year. In which, is that normal every year, or is it just kind of fluctuate? Say, what this year we have, was it like 25, close to 25 freshmen? We've got 6 off last year's team and a few transfers, so there's probably roughly around 10 sophomores. So will next year we'll have abundance of sophomores and a minimum amount of freshmen? Kind of tell me about that process.
Well, the ideal situation is to try to keep it about half and half.
Okay.
And that's what you try to do. But sometimes because of different kinds of reasons, you end up with a heavy load on one end. Like last year's team that went 48-10, it was predominantly sophomores. So we had to replace the sophomores, and we replaced them with some quality freshmen. The issues with freshmen is the first half of the year they play like 10th graders in high school. Gotcha. The second half of the year they play like 11th graders in high school, and when you're a sophomore you actually play like a senior in high school. But it's a matter of these guys that are good players being able to apply what is being taught to be able to compete at this level, because it's a big step up. A lot of guys don't realize that. Parents don't realize that from high school to junior college is a major step up for them.
Absolutely. Now, you said we had some transfers that came in. Were these players, were they transferring from another junior college or a 4-year school? Kind of tell me about those 6 guys.
Well, the guys that we've had guys in the past that's transferred from different 4-year schools. I always say there's a reason why they're transferring. Mm-hmm. It might be a financial reason. It might be an issue that's hard to understand, hard to explain. But the guys that we've got this year that we picked up in January, actually there's only 2 of these guys. Jack Haney was a guy that was drafted by the Washington Nationals last year out of high school. He signed at Chipola. Okay. Was able to get a release to come up here and play for us. And we brought back, I feel like guys deserve second chances. And we had a player that was on the team year before last, and he had some issues that I tried to help him with. Wasn't able to help him with him at the time, but we've given him another chance, and so far he's doing what he's supposed to do, because we want him to be successful. And not, like I said, not only in baseball, we want him to be successful because one day they're going to be a husband, a father. They're going to be either in sales or in business or coaching or whatever they decide that they're supposed to do. But the transfers help us, but the foundation is built in the fall. And when I say the fall, I'm talking about from August until we go home for Christmas. And that's the kind of guys that you try to develop each day, because junior college baseball is about development. It's about taking guys they're good ball players, but developing them each day. The ones that excel are the ones that can apply what you're teaching.
Yes, sir. Do you have a large amount of transfers every semester? I guess you could just say it's the terminology JUCO baseball. You never know, right? Because it could be you never really know what the cycle is going to turn around, right?
Right. Well, everybody has aspirations of playing in the SEC. When they come out of high school, they want to play in the SEC, and then they get into the programs and they find out they're competing against guys that are 22 and 23, and they're 18 and 19, and they decide to transfer where they can get more playing time. And a lot of guys do make mistakes by going to 4-year schools.
You realize that they're not on that level.
Exactly. Our shortstop for the last 2 years is at Alabama now and is excelling at Alabama. He's in their lineup playing Jacoby Robinson from Coleman High School. I'm so proud of him because he developed with us, and now he's excelling in the SEC.
That's awesome. Now, you talked about Jacoby just then. Do we have what players do we have right now that are maybe in a major D1 school?
Well, the guys that we had last year that signed at the 4-year schools, our third baseman, Austin Triplett, signed at UAB. He's playing down there. I mentioned Kobe at Alabama. Devin Brown, our second baseman last year, signed at Jacksonville State. He's playing there. Palmer Ford is our our first baseman, and he's playing at UAH. Dalton Sinkfield, our right fielder from last year, signed at Troy, and he's an excellent player. We've had Blake Rivera, that was one of our pitchers that had signed at Auburn and ended up going in the 4th round with the San Francisco Giants. Tanner Rusk, a local guy from West Point, really developed when he got into our program. Had Tommy John for us last year, missed the major part of the year, which really hurt our chances to be successful. But he's at UAB, so there's a number of guys that.
And that's just off last year's team.
That's just off last year's
So we've got,
team.
what, 10, 11 players off last year's team playing at a D1 school right now. And then maybe on the year before that, do we still have some players out there that you know of?
Yeah, they most guys that if they play in our program, they get an opportunity to play. Some maybe not at the Division I level, but they get a chance to be able to play and get their education paid for.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of them go to Division II and they go to NAIA schools also, which is, as I tell them, that's fine. Mm-hmm. If you love the game and you want to get your education paid for while you're a student athlete, then it's okay to go to Division II or NAIA school from here. So yeah, all of our guys get the opportunity if they actually want the opportunity.
Yes, sir. And I went out of high school to NAIA school, Division I NAIA school, and then transferred to a Division I school to play. So I know about that opportunity. I went to starting as a freshman and starting as a sophomore to going as a junior, and not starting going to like 3rd string. So I guess I totally did a total about face what normal people do, because normally they start out at a certain level. And maybe a 3rd or 4th string, and then they work their way up to a starter. So I kind of went backwards, so I understand that. So the players we've got right now, you said we've got, say 6 transfers, total about 10 guys that are probably going to be moving out after this semester here. Right. And we're in the middle of the season. We're going to talk about the season here shortly. Any of these guys, if they already signed, I know. Actually, I shouldn't ask that question. I know like 3 or 4 of these gentlemen, because back when I first met you, I went to a signing up on the 12th floor, and I believe it was 3 of our baseball players. Right. If you could identify those guys and where they landed a scholarship, and if we've got any more that are out of the class right now. Right.
Easton Kirk, he signed at Troy. He can play just about anywhere on the field for us, but he's a catcher, 3rd baseman, 1st baseman. Robert Coleman is one of our pitchers that I'm very proud of, because he was actually a basketball player at Minor High School in Birmingham, and during the region tournament up here, he came over one day and asked if he would be able to throw in the bullpen, and there was something there for him to develop, and we was able to develop Robert, and he signed at West Georgia, and trying to think of the third one. Yeah, Garrett Brown. Garrett Brown is one of our top pitchers. He signed at Samford. He had a lot of opportunities to go, and but he's. I'm proud of all 3 of them. All of the guys will get an opportunity. They're excellent players. It's just,
those 3 gentlemen are the only 3 right now that we have. Okay,
right,
gotcha. But we'll have more though, right?
Oh, we'll have more. Yeah, they'll be able to. Like I said, if they played here, they'll get an opportunity. It's just where.
Yes, sir. And I like keeping in touch with and seeing where these gentlemen go when they leave here. I know, like with my father's school, I'm getting to go see one of his former players this weekend. He plays basketball at LSU, and they're going to be in Tuscaloosa. So I'm getting to go see Daryl. And so Daryl spent 2 years with my father, so his school. So I always try to keep up and see where these students, these student athletes, where they land, and like you said, it's life experiences too. I like to hear the success stories. So it's not always about where you go play. That's big. I mean, because that's paying for your college, but also I do believe we have some success stories from players that maybe they played here for you and maybe not went to a 4-year school. maybe they went to coach or just maybe own a business that making a very good living, successful individuals. Can you elaborate on any of those success stories?
Well, I love to see guys that played for us here, and then if they decide to go into coaching, that they're very successful. PJ guy that's at Helena right now, he was at Sipsey Valley. PJ he would be the first to tell you that he wasn't a great player, but every single day when we got through a practice, we do a very structured practice schedule each day that is posted where everybody sees exactly what we're going to do, and he would get that schedule, and he would carry that schedule home with him, and he follows it to a T of where he is now, and he's won some state championships there at Helena, and does an excellent job. The guy that I was proud of, he's not coaching any longer, was Brian Bowen. That's from Coleman. When Brian, after he played here, he went to Sanford and played, and he had such tremendous success coaching at Coleman High School. He started that program and turned it around very quickly, and that's just two guys right there that come to my mind. That there's been others. Some of them have coached, and then they've gone into the administrative part of it, where they're assistant principals and principals.
And you talked about those two guys there being successful in that aspect, but there's two other guys that I guess you would say are pretty successful too, and they're currently still successful. And I guess when you kind of tie in Wallace State and the major leagues, those two guys' names pop up, and that's Craig Kimbrel, which he's the #1 closer, correct, in the major leagues.
Yeah, Craig will probably end up being a Hall of Famer. He played in the World Series last year and pitched and closed for the Boston Red Sox, and he's played with a couple of different organizations, and he's still right now a free agent, and I'm hoping that he'll come back to Atlanta where I can see him more.
I know you and Russell Moore were talking about that in the hallway, and the other gentleman that the standout here, Derek Holland.
Right. And Derek is from Newark, Ohio, and a former player of mine who's now a cross-checker with the New York Mets. He sent Derek down here, and he said Derek would be a good college player. He'd be a good college pitcher, but Derek got down here and he developed. And he developed in the weight room, developed on the field, and has been in the big leagues for a number of years, and is with the San Francisco Giants now, and does an excellent job. He's had a great career. And he'll probably, when he gets out of baseball, he'll probably go into broadcasting, because he likes the microphone.
Now, Coach, me personally too, I'm interested in these stories. I believe I could just sit down with you and just probably for a whole week and probably still not get 25% of the information that you've got, up top here. I'm very interested in what it's like, coaching these gentlemen, coaching these kids. Did you know? And I guess that was a question I had too, and I could tie that in. How do you know can you look at a player in high school and tell that player has got the major league qualities, or is it one of those things that it takes a year or two of developing, maybe on the first freshman, sophomore year of college? Because some of these players are coming out of high school and going straight to the league, so they're identifying these players. How do you identify these players so early and know that they have the capability of playing?
Well, the guys that make it to the big leagues usually have the same qualities in the fact that they love the game. They're willing to do whatever needs to be done for them to be successful, and they're just very, very passionate about being successful. Craig Kimbrel, not a lot of people recruited Craig out of Lee High School in Huntsville. And the reason that I signed Craig was I watched him get knocked out of a game in the second inning down at Hoover High School one day, and against Coleman High School, and it bothered him. He didn't act, he didn't throw his glove, didn't act crazy. It bothered him, it hurt him. And I saw the passion of how bad it hurt him, that he had that desire to be successful through coaching, through development. And it was very evident that the story on him was when he broke his foot, and then we got him on this specific throwing program that developed a lot of arm strength and all. And we knew right off the bat with him that after months and months and months of rehabbing his foot and months of changing his body and all, he had the right kind of mindset. So to answer your question, the right kind of mindset, a lot of guys have the ability, but they just don't have that mental toughness and that right kind of mindset to be as successful as they could be.
Yes, sir. And what was it like, coaching some of these major league players? I'm assuming did you know, like when Craig Kimbrel and Derek, say, just let's use these two gentlemen for example, when they were players here, did you know that they were going to go to the league first off, and then I would say second of all, how did you find out when they were going to be prospects, and then what was it like coaching them?
Well, those guys both being pitchers, they just through development, the velocity gained a lot when they got here. The repetition of doing it over and over every day, they become consistent. Zealous Wheeler was another one that he played third base for the New York Yankees, and as he told me, he turned around one night and who's playing shortstop but Derek Jeter. Mm-hmm. And I said, how was that? You're playing next to going to be a Hall of Famer, Derek Jeter. Mm-hmm. And he said, I was in awe. But Zealous, for example, he's from Childersburg. He was a football player. And so he had that mentality, that toughness, that if he could apply coaching once again, if he could do everything that you ask him to do, that he would develop. And he hated to lose. See, everybody wants to win, but the ones that you win with are the ones that hate to lose. Those are the type guys they'll walk on fire for you. And it's hard to find those guys this day and time.
Yes, sir.
And you try to develop those kind of guys this day and time, but it is hard. It's extremely harder than it used to be.
Now, when we had, and I'm going to kind of roll on this one more question. When you had, say, was Craig and Derek, were they here at the same time?
For 1 year, they were.
Okay. Were there major league prospects here? I mean, what was that like? Because didn't they leave straight from here and go to the leagues, or did they? Yeah.
Derek signed at Arizona State, but I knew that he wasn't going to go to school because his sophomore year, he was – in those days, the scouts had organizations had a draft and follow. He was drafted as a freshman, but as a sophomore, he was the scout that drafted him. I said, give him third-round money and he'll go. And that's what he did because Derek didn't want to go to school. He wanted to start his pro career. Craig was drafted his freshman year, but it wasn't high enough to go. We discussed it again before, after the draft in the early part of the summer, and he decided to, after his sophomore year, he'd signed at Alabama, and we knew that he was, because of his ability, because of his velocity, that he was possibly could make it in the big leagues.
Wow. Now, I guess the most recent major league players is Blake Riviera. Is that correct? That's left out of here.
Right. Blake Rivera was a right-handed pitcher last year from Smith Station High School, and he was another one that really developed while he was here. We changed his body in the weight room. He got a lot bigger, got a lot stronger, and as I thought last year when he was pitching for us, his breaking pitch was major league ready. His fastball was very, 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 very good, mid-90s guy, but he needed to develop more command to be able to throw it where he wanted to. And the Giants drafted him in the 4th round, so that tells you that they think that he can, pitch in the big leagues one day.
Now, where is he located now?
He's in spring training right now, okay. But he last year he played up in Eugene, Oregon, which is Northwest League, short league, A-ball league, and he had a good year. He had a good year. That first year in professional baseball is difficult because you're thousands of miles away from home. They're going to treat you like professional players, and they're going to get you acclimated to playing at the professional, and so they're not going to pat you on the back a lot. They're going to drive you, and he was used to that from being in our program, and I think that will benefit him as far as one day making it to the big leagues, because that's what Derek and Craig have both said, was that me personally, I'm tough on them.
Now, will Blake? Where will he play? Because ball's about to start here. There's spring training. So
right.
where will he land for this spring?
Well, he told me he'd love to go to AA. I'd be surprised if they start him in AA. Mm-hmm. He'll probably be in the regular A League, which I'm not sure exactly where the Giants is. It's probably in California, somewhere in the California League, which is an advanced A League. But he hopes to end up, before the season is over, he hopes to end up in AA. And once you make it to AA, then you're not too far away from possibly making it in the big leagues.
I got you.
Jake Elmore is he's still on an active roster. He's been in the big leagues with a number of different teams. He played with Houston. He played with the Milwaukee Brewers in the big leagues. He's fluctuating between AAA and the big leagues, and he's with the Chicago White Sox now, and he hopes to stick in spring training with the Chicago White Sox. But he's making a pretty good living if he ends up in AAA. And Zealous Wheeler, that I mentioned earlier, Zealous signed a big contract in Japan.
Okay.
And he's playing in Japan, and he's one of the Japanese favorite players.
Oh, wow.
Matter of fact.
I have to check that out. Yeah, that's now, can you name us some more maybe past Major League players that we've had come out of here?
Right. The guys that I've had, Godfrey was Graham was a right-handed pitcher for us. He transferred from Vanderbilt, and he ended up playing in the big leagues. Matter of fact, his first win in the big leagues was against the Giants when he was with Oakland against Tim Lincecum. Was like I said, very, very good player. We've had I believe it's 34 guys that have been drafted out of here to go and play professional baseball. That's something that I'm extremely proud of. I like to see them get their 4-year degrees, but at the same time, I like to see them, if their aspirations of playing professional baseball, maybe there's something that we did to help them.
Yes, sir. Just a few more questions for you, Coach. I know your time is valuable, and I do appreciate you being here. Maybe some players right now on this active roster that we have here at Wallace State. Tell me some players to look out for that if we were to come to a game, that some players to look out for on our active roster now.
Well, the 3 guys that I mentioned that had already signed, all 3 of those guys have the potential to one day possibly play professional baseball. Another sophomore that we've got, Brady Sherrill, is an excellent player. He'll have an opportunity to move on and play at the 4-year level. Some of our freshmen have a lot of talent. They have a lot of talent. They've just got to develop and mature to know how to play the game. Kevin Dowdell, Brendan McCullough are 2 guys. Ty Hill, all 3 of those guys are outfielders that they're extremely talented. It's just it's a matter of just maturity of them growing up. Our infielders are Noah Fondren is a sophomore, and Noah played a lot for us last year. He's playing a lot for us this year. He's kind of a utility guy. He can play anywhere. So these young guys are the ones that, like I said, it's all about development.
Yes, sir. Now, on our schedule now, we're probably about 2 to 3 weeks into the schedule, and I know this rain has really put a damper on everything and it's not just us. I think it's all the way across, the South. I know it's everybody's been dealing with the massive amounts of rain. But where are we in our schedule right now for the spring ball?
Well, we're about a little over a week away from starting conference play.
Okay.
And I've done it a little bit different this year, where usually after the first week or two, I've got a lineup, and I'm going to go with that lineup. This year I've tried to allow more guys to play just to see where they, where they are as far as, being able to contribute. We've tried to let all the pitchers throw. In some cases, that's hurt us. But the main thing we're trying to do is we're trying to get 100% ready and know who's going to be playing where and who's going to be pitching in out of the bullpen, who's starting, and we're a little over a week away from that. We've lost 5 games to rain. We were able to make up 2 games on Monday when we went up to Columbia, Tennessee, And but we've lost 5 games, and that's 5 crucial games that we've missed out because of the weather. Because these freshmen, they need repetition, they need at bats. So we go down to Scuba, Mississippi to play tomorrow if the weather holds off, and they come up here on Saturday, and then we start conference play next Thursday, March 7th against Calhoun.
Yes, sir. Now, do we have a rivalry, Coach? I know that that's always. I know it's junior college, but I know we've got to have somebody that we have a little bit of tension with. Kind of enlighten me on that.
Well, over the years, I think probably the rivalries that have been developed is you have to name Shelton and Southern Union.
Yes, sir.
I mean, both excellent coaches at those schools, and they both do a great job as far as recruiting and coaching. And so there's always been some really, really good games, and that's what develops a junior college rivalry is what kind of games you play. And most of the time, those 2 schools, it goes down to the last inning. And
so Enterprise may be in that list now, right, Coach?
Well, Enterprise being in the Southern Division, but at the same time, who knows?
Yes, sir.
I hope the best for them.
In closing, I know that you've got to have some funny stories in your years of coaching. I got to hear a couple funny stories before we get out of here.
Well, baseball is a game of memories. Everything that you do, you seem to remember it. And I like to tell the story of how I developed the program. 30 years ago, there were a few guys that had played the year before, but they wasn't very successful. I put in all the papers, Birmingham, Huntsville, Decatur, the papers surrounding Huntsville that was going to have tryouts. And we had tryouts that morning and starting at 9 o'clock, and I'll never forget it because it was 103 degrees. And it was me and a manager from the year before, Member Masters was his name. And so I lined them all up against the backstop. We didn't have our stadium. And I gave them all a number. I gave them a piece of paper and said, write down your phone number. There was no cell phone, so it was a home number. And I said, we're going to call you in 1 through 10, 11 through 20, and there was 113 guys there that day. And we started at 9 o'clock in the morning, and at 12 o'clock, there was 10 or 12 guys that had dropped by the way. At 4 o'clock, there were a few more. At 5 o'clock, there were a few more. And at 5 until 11 that night, I called all 9 guys of the 113 up, and I asked them, I said, how long would you stay here? And they say, Coach, we want to play for you. We've tried out everywhere else, and we're not very good, but we want to play for you. And I signed all those guys. And that first year, we went 35-13 with them. I mean, that's how we built the program. We wasn't looking for the best guys. We were looking for the right guys. And I'll never forget those guys because that's how we built the program, on hard work, determination, desire, passion. And those guys had all of that. And we didn't have but a few pitchers, and we pitched them to death. Because every time that we had a game, they had to pitch. And I'll always be very grateful to those guys because that's how we built this program. And 30 years later, we're trying the same goals each and every year. I always enjoy that story.
Yes, sir.
I think the other there's a million stories that you could,
I'm sure
that you could talk about, but I mean it's. I think we do things a little bit different here. A lot of people, because this program is not for everybody. I mean, and I say that you've got to love the game, and I try to tell them that you should love God, your family, and then baseball and being a student is the same. You need to try to excel in both, and that's just that's the only way that I know how to do it, and that's the way that as long as I'm coaching, that's the only way I know how to do it.
Yes, sir, and I believe that is a good way to close out this podcast. Let me ask you too, though. Out of those gentlemen on that first team, do you still stay in touch with those? Do you hear from those guys?
I've got one of their players, Lee Ragland. His son is coming to play for me next year.
Wow.
He's at Oak Mountain High School. One of my all-time favorite players, Mike Underwood, that was on that team. We still stay in touch. LaWayne Morton played on that team. He's the girls. He's the softball coach at Coleman High School now.
Okay.
Chris Ursary, that ended up flying jets in the military. He's had an office in the Pentagon, and we stay in touch. And that was a fun year. That first year was one of my most enjoyable years, and we almost won the state tournament with those guys because they wasn't very good, but they thought they were.
Well, you know, and it's kind of funny you made that point. I was watching recently a show. It's one of those Last Chance U's, and the coach was basically saying, this was I guess the newest one. I'm a little behind on my TV, so it's I've probably been out a year. But he was saying, I don't care if you've come from a D1 school. I don't care if you played at Texas A&M, if you played at Michigan. I could take a guy that's straight out of high school that really wants to play and have a better player than somebody that's going to be lethargic and have that prima donna attitude that maybe went to a Division I school that's coming down there. So it's not all about that sometimes. It's about the heart and the passion, and that's good to know.
Guys, yeah, it's about everybody wants to play, but it's far and few between when you find the guys that want to practice, and that's every day. I mean, because that's where you win games is in practice.
Yes, sir.
And that's where you perfect your skills is in practice. And they all like to play, but like I said, the guys that you win with and you can go to battle with are the guys that really enjoy practice.
Yes, sir. And in closing, when you say everybody wants to play, what if you – and I know you said you do your recruiting in the summertime, but what if we have some individuals that maybe hear this podcast or a relative hears a podcast and they know somebody that may be a collegiate potential player that maybe would want to play here? Right. Do you have open tryouts, or how can they what kind of suggestions do you give to anyone that may be interested in playing here? Is there a spot on the website where they could go and reach out to you? Just kind of elaborate on that.
We enjoy having players come in and work out with us. They could contact me or Coach Marks, and I would rather the player do it. Sometimes high school coaches do it, and I'm okay with that. And we allow them to come in and practice with us, and we just put them in a practice and see how they fit in. And I tell them up front that they need to be better than what we've got.
Yes, sir.
If they're equal with what we got, then we're trying to get better with each and every player. So, but that's how they would do it. Just contact us, and then we would allow them to come in and like I said, and work out with us.
Great. And I'm going to have to get with Coach Marks, him being a former Yankee. I'm a diehard Yankee fan, so I'm going to have to rack his brain a little while. But Coach, I do appreciate your time being here on Line Talk. I'm sure everyone that hears this will really appreciate it too. And it's good to hear, you know, some of the success stories and where our players where they end up landing and where they're currently playing now. So that's always good to hear. I look forward to having you back here on Line Talk and just, you know, catching back up again. Thank you for your time, Coach.
Thank you, John.